Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Well, I'm really excited to do this stream today because this stream was actually supposed to be done a couple weeks ago, but then I got a stupid YouTube strike for a reason that was not fair at all. We're not going to complain about that. But I'm so happy to welcome to the channel Damien Jarret. Damien is the Advocacy Director for the Walkaway Campaign PAC, the People's PAC, also shortened to be the WAC PAC, which I'm not sure I appreciate, but is fun enough. A British immigrant and not Australian immigrant and former Liberal, he was a paying Labour Party member and a Remain voter during the Brexit referendum. Upon moving to America in 2017, he soon discovered he had been misled by the UK and US mainstream media, and in 2018, citing the Democrats' treatment of Brett Kavanaugh, he slowly began to divorce himself from the left and joined the walkaway movement as a moderator after discovering the group in 2020. Since then, he has slowly risen up through the ranks and works alongside Brandon Straka, Libby Albert, and the rest of the Walkaway team ahead of the upcoming relaunch to help grow the brand of the Walkaway Campaign PAC. Damien is a true Walkaway. I'm so excited to get an update from you on what's been going on with Walkaway. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. And we're near the end. Like I keep saying, we're close. And everyone who watches Brandon's lives must keep getting tired of hearing it. But it is true. We are very, very close to the end. And we're super excited. I mean, we're, a lot of people are asking about, Brandon the start. And I figured I would get that, out of
get it out of the way.
Get out of the air straight away.
Out of the room. Yeah.
There are some fast moving pieces going on right now. I can't talk about the intricacies of it, but obviously what is public is he had a smaller extension than the previous extensions, which the deadline for that is October 6th. So ultimately they have to get moving by that date. So I kind of just tell people to keep an eye on that October 6th date. Might be before, it could be on the day. We don't know. But ultimately, Brandon, there's some fast moving stuff. We're close to the end. We are, we've got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about today in terms of what we've been doing on the back end in these past 8 months. And, we're only going to come back bigger and stronger than ever after the attempts to cancel us. So.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think that this entire year, I'm going to speak for can I speak for myself for a minute, Damien, not representing Walkaway at all in any way, shape, or form. I think this entire year has been about them using Brandon as a scapegoat, them using Brandon as a high profile person who happened to be there on January 6th, who did nothing wrong so far as I'm concerned. All the charges were BS, but and again, I'm speaking for myself. And they've used this as an opportunity to sideline him because Brandon is incredibly effective. Like him or hate him, he is incredibly effective at what he does, and that's one of the reasons why they're so scared of him. But I fully expect him to come back with a vengeance. When all this is over, I'm sure he's more pissed off than he has ever been in his life that he's had to be sidelined for several months. And I've seen some of the things you guys are working on in the behind the scenes. You guys aren't just taking vacation for the last several months, right? You've actually been hard at work doing stuff. And so I'm really excited to talk about some of those because you guys have been doing, guys, I am not easily impressed, and I'm not one to blow smoke, as many of you know. But when I've seen the things that Damien and the team have been working on, I've truly been blown away. So, Damien, can we talk about that? What has Walkaway been doing when you guys have been kind of in this quiet stage?
Yeah, and I can feel everybody and all that stuff. And I do want to first say thank you because Carlin has been, there have been plenty of people that have kind of stuck their heads in the sand since Brandon's arrest. Didn't want to get their names muddied in even talking about January 6th or anything like that. Some of the accusations made against Brandon within the complaint from the FBI. Anyone who knows Brandon I don't even need to say anything. If you know Brandon, it's bogus. And ultimately, Carlin and has been one of the ones that has really stuck by him and been vocal, and we're really happy for that. And yeah, no, absolutely. So I can kind of get started. Let's start with the cancellations because let's give props to Libby, especially because, and Brandon will say this 100%. Libby really was the driving force behind keeping things going whilst in that early stages, the cancellations came in. I mean, we lost our payment processors. We lost our Facebook group, which had over 500,000 people on it. We used Classy to do a lot of our events and our fundraising. We lost them. We were canceled by Stripe. We were canceled by everybody that could cancel us. It really was a very low moment. Around the time that I had actually only just kind of risen up to to being kind of closer with Brandon and the management team. And it was a really dark time. And I think Libby, really, we all rallied around Libby, and in terms of how she managed to keep everything going. We found a conservative friendly payment provider that we were able to get our donation portals back up and running. So our revenue completely stopped entirely, and that's a huge deal. We had salaries to pay. We had people have families. It was a real tough time. We got that back up and running. And she was really kind of the driving force behind that, and went under a lot of stress as well herself. Her business was affected. Other admins for our Facebook group, their businesses were affected.
Yeah, can we get? I want to make sure we put a really fine point on this so that people understand what you're saying, because I don't think that people understand. A lot of people know that the Walkaway group got completely banned by Facebook out of nowhere right after January 6th, right? What I don't think a lot of people understand is that anyone who was an admin on that account, their personal accounts also got banned. And some of those people might have been like people who were doing your t-shirts, or like you have like one guy whose account got banned who was also running a business with his personal account where he was running ads for like several different other companies. That account got completely banned, which
Tanya,
destroyed his business. Yeah.
Tanya, one of our she was pivotal in my growth within the organization. Tanya Roberts, one of our most dedicated volunteers. She has she does social media marketing for other companies. Not only did she lose her business page because she lost her personal page as an admin, her customers lost their pages because she was an admin of those pages. So anything she had an association with was just ripped out of Facebook. Just went to town on it, and she, so this is, and nobody's ended, I mean, obviously, look, we moderate those pages as best we can, but there was never anything that breached their standards on there at all. They plugged these new algorithms in, and obviously our group with, such a lot of traction that the algorithms obviously went ding, 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 and they just pulled it and banned everybody. And it was a tough time for people like Tanya, and there were others as well. And Libby herself, and obviously Libby is now on the big tech lawsuit with President Trump. She is part of that, representing Walkaway. So we are on that. And we unfortunately, I don't think we have any more updates on that at this time, but that's how big a deal it was that we are now actually partnering on this lawsuit with Donald Trump to go after big tech, to kind of fight for those people who nearly lost livelihoods out of this situation. And it was brutal.
So Walkaway, Brandon gets arrested. Everything Walkaway has is canceled. Every single bit of your infrastructure is canceled. Libby kind of swoops in, takes the reins, tries to pull things back together. So what has been rebuilt between then and now?
So it's pretty much everything. We've been building. We thankfully still have our state groups. I don't know how they haven't gone, but the state groups remain. So we are able to connect with people via the state groups. But Brandon and Libby, basically, this was already an idea, but obviously this just sped this process up. We didn't want to set something up that was necessarily going to be competing with Getter, with Parler, or anything like that. This is really initially starting out. I mean, if it turns into a place for everybody to come to, then great. But we wanted to set up our own social media platform for our members to come, where they can't be canceled, where we don't have to worry about censoring what they say. Because right now, to save our state groups from getting the same, from coming to the same grim death as our main group, we have basically been censoring people. And not approving posts through anything we feel could ding our group with Facebook standards. So we've become the very people we kind of don't want to become, to save those groups, so then we can actually move people over to this new social media platform. It will be servers run by us. We'll have backup servers. We have mirrored it to Facebook very deliberately, so people can come in. Like, a lot of people go on the Parler and go on the Frank Speech and go on the Getter, and it's a nightmare trying to get used to the different features. It's going to look very identical to Facebook in terms of how the functionality of it and how it runs. And then we'll have our main group where our testimonials can come back free from any risk of ever being lost again. And then we'll have state groups. And then on the side of that, we will be launching the new super PAC, which is where the activism side of things will be coming from. Obviously, in the past, as a 501c3, we've had to always been very careful. The foundation isn't going anywhere. That will have its own projects, but we will be able to take the super PAC and be a lot more political and use phrases like walk away from the Democrat Party, which we weren't obviously previously allowed to say. So, so our activists will be, which is the area that I am heading up, our activists will be able to then be a lot more political and will be very active in those groups to grow the grassroots organization out.
Yeah, which I very much appreciate, because I know when we were doing walkaway rallies last year, there were certain things I wasn't supposed to say, and sometimes I skirted the rules and sometimes I didn't, and I would always get a stern talking to, like, Carlin, don't say that again. But
and then Nick would come out on the mic and say, just a reminder that Walkaway does not endorse any candidates. We'd have to throw out the disclaimer halfway through the rally just because
several times, sometimes on several occasions. But we're not gonna have to do that anymore, because I think like what you're saying is like the Walkaways Foundation, which was kind of like what people thought of as like Walkaway, that still exists, but now there's going to be like this new arm that's the Walkaway PAC that's going to be able to be much more politically active than the nonprofit foundation was able to be.
Absolutely. And ultimately it also means that we can, if we choose to, we haven't made any decisions on exactly how this is going to look yet, but if we choose to endorse a candidate, we can. And what's more important is we're a super PAC. So being a super PAC, we are, we don't donate directly to candidates. It has to be indirect expenditures only. So whether that be a TV ad, a flyer, a newspaper ad, that is how we invest in a candidate's campaign. So we control all the money ourselves. So that means if a candidate ever goes against, whereas in a normal PAC, you would donate them $5,000 per candidate, and you could, you could coordinate and they could spend that money however they wanted, and then they could go do something completely against what we stood for and we'd be screwed. We'd already given them the money. We can just stop the money flowing at that point. And ultimately that does also enable us to take unlimited donations. It allows us to take corporate money too. I want to stipulate, whenever you say the C word, corporate and money, and everyone kind of goes, oh, but it's kind of, we're not going to be a super PAC that is dictated to by the corporations. If a corporation wants to come in and give us an unlimited donation because they like what we are doing, then that's fine. But we're not going to let a corporation come in and say, oh, wow, you have a great following, a great base of advocates there. We want you to advocate for this specific bill or for this particular candidate. If they don't align with our values, we're not taking their money. It is that simple. The key thing here is, like I say, we're called the People's PAC. We don't own this PAC. We ultimately want it to restore the voice of the people, which we feel is being drowned out by federal government overreach, the imbalance of the Constitution. So we're trying to restore people's voices. And we started out, even within our own walkaway values, we are about to publish the walkaway values, the 5 core walkaway values.
Okay.
Those were decided by the people. We set up a survey on the back end of the website, and we then push that out to everybody on our mailing list, everyone that followed Brandon on Facebook, to our state groups. And we said, you tell us your top 5 federal issues. And then after a couple of months of taking those in, we sat down in a meeting behind closed doors and said, what did people say? That's what they said. That's what we decided. These were the top 5 issues ranked by kind of ranked choice voting, in a sense. And that's how we did it. And now we're shaping the messaging around those values as to what we stand for. And then we're going to push those out, and that's what we're going to hold politicians and legislation to account.
I remember taking that survey, actually, I think when you guys first launched it, basically just saying, like, what are the things that are most important to you? And like what you're saying, if I can just repeat back to make sure I understand, based on what average everyday people are telling you guys, those are the values that you're going to be using for this PAC. But based on those values, that's how you're going to make decisions about which candidates you endorse, what things you invest in, things like that. So entirely based on the values that have been established based on the votes of actual people.
100%. And those values, obviously, yes. And when we looked at them, those values are all tied to the Constitution. They're all tied to the core principles, right? The one thing, our mission is very clear. It's to get people to walk away from the Democrat Party and to endorse candidates and legislation that stand for walkaway values. The vision, we sat down and we kind of really hashed over the vision and how we were going to put it. And one of the things, and I had a big say in kind of work in phrasing that vision, because one of the key things when I came to America, and was really kind of pivotal in me walking away, was I came here and I wanted to understand America better. I kind of realized very quickly I didn't have an understanding of America. I'd come on holiday here a few times. I thought I knew America. We all speak the same language, right? We all have similar values in a sense, because we have Western
values. Well, your people are much more proper. You're much more proper and put together than us riffraffs.
A little bit. But the key thing, I really thought that we would have a lot more in common than we actually did. And I found out very quickly we don't, in how we do business, how we don't. You'd be very surprised. And
okay, tell me more about that. I'm actually fascinated. Tell me more.
So a lot of that was understanding the core foundations of this country, in the fact that, in the sense of, I can tell you right now, when Donald Trump was elected, I was horrified. I couldn't believe that they could ever elect someone in America like Donald Trump. Now, it only took 2 years. In fact, not even 2 years. I came out late 2017. It took me a year to realize exactly how Donald Trump could, at least, and even if I wasn't on board the Trump train at the time, I very quickly understood how it happened. And then I started to realize, I live in the North Shore of Massachusetts. We're in this Boston bubble. And I very quickly realized that, after doing a little bit of traveling around the country on business, the people here within this bubble that I live in had very little respect for anybody outside of that bubble within the Rust Belt. And that kind of really, got me on a journey of trying to understand the foundations of this country. So when we talk about the vision of the Walkaway PAC, for me, it was about uniting people behind the core principles and the foundations of this country, because we are less divided than people think, 100%. However, there is only one side that is seeking to undermine the Constitution, and that is the Democrat Party, in my opinion. Can there be, are we all guilty of it sometimes? 100%. Mike Pence said something recently I didn't like, that I felt wasn't constitutional. And look, we all trip up. We're not perfect. We're imperfect human beings. However, there is, the core principles and the founding, and what the founding fathers envisioned for this country was very clear to me. And I saw one side undermining it, and I'm like, well, but I spoke to a few classic liberals, and they were like saying the same stuff that I was saying, and they were walking away. They were voting for Donald Trump in the 2020 election when they hadn't necessarily in 2016. So that's what it really comes down to. It comes down to the fact that we actually have a lot of common ground with classic liberals in terms of respecting the First Amendment, respecting the Second Amendment. Regardless of what I think about religion myself, or what I think, I respect the religious freedom of people to have their religious beliefs and to make choices based on those beliefs, and have the freedoms based on the. I fought for the right of the Christian baker, Christian bakery, to make that decision to not bake that cake. Did I agree with that decision? No. I think if you did that in my hometown, you'd be out of business very quickly, and it would be a dumb business decision. It would be a very dumb business decision. However, that is your right to choose, and I stood up for that. I see a lot of liberals, a lot of leftists, and I hate to use the term liberal too much, because, let's say, classic liberals are still very much aligned with us on those core principles.
Liberal means liberty at the end of the day.
But these leftists, I like how Ben Shapiro does it. He uses the term leftist to describe those people. These leftists are absolutely trying to undermine it, and right now they're gaining a lot of traction. I said during the election process, I wasn't worried about Joe Biden in terms of, I don't think he's a progressive, but we knew he wasn't pulling the strings.
Joe Biden's not all there.
No, he's not pulling the string. He's just getting his shot at the presidency. And he's being told to basically sit there and be quiet for 4 years, and let us pass our radical leftist agenda, and shut up and don't answer questions and ride with it. And he's willing to whore himself out, basically, for that 4 years of the presidency. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a lot of liberals that also are willing, for their own ideals, to whore themselves out for these progressives. And that's something I'm not willing to do. I'm not willing to put it on the line. Like, people don't realize what they've got till they come to America. They really don't.
No, I agree. And I think, in just the, several months that Joe Biden has been president, I think we're all seeing exactly what many of us were afraid of, and why we worked so hard before the election. Because I want to remind everyone, like, Walkaway was the only organization that was out there doing in-person events in 2020. We were the only ones. We worked incredibly hard. Damien was Damien was at our rallies. Like, we worked incredibly hard. And I think we all now know why. And, we've seen what Joe Biden has done to this country. We've seen what this agenda has done. Damien, we still have over 3 more years of this. How are we going to make it?
And that's the key thing. And what I'm trying to tell people, like, is keep the faith, right? I honestly feel like the good thing is we still have people like Joe Manchin who seem to have more balls
Thank
than
God.
the most.
Joe
He
Manchin,
has.
Kristen Sinema, man. Thank
They've
God.
got. I don't agree with them on everything, but they've got the balls to stand up to their party, something that some Republicans don't have, in my opinion. So he's got more balls than some Republicans. I got a lot of respect for Joe Manchin, even though we disagree on a lot of stuff. Because I mean, this week you got to keep an eye on what's happening in Congress. The $3.5 trillion package is coming up, and it's going to go to the Senate, and it only needs 50 votes. And Manchin and Sinema are the only people that can save us. So we have to rely on them. That's happening. But this is kind of what I keep saying to people: keep the faith. And how do we battle that, right? How do we battle the fact that we don't have the mainstream media narratives? We don't even have the social media narratives anymore. I mean, look what happened with the Hunter Biden story just prior to the election. How do we do that? And we do that by creating the biggest grassroots movement we've ever seen. People kind of have forgotten what Donald Trump did in 2016. Donald Trump had such great outreach on the ground. I mean, he had people even here in Massachusetts. He had an office out here, and these people were hardcore, knocking on doors, canvassing, holding events, meet and greets, fundraisers, rallies. And this guy raised so much money in small donations, through that outreach. And that is really, honestly, all we're doing. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's just people are forgetting what happened with Donald Trump and how he got to where he got to in 2016. So what are we doing at the Walkaway Super PAC? Well, the first thing is, that's the key thing: create the biggest grassroots movement that we possibly can. We divide the country up into 8 regions. Within those 8 regions, we then combine the states. I have 8 regional coaches already set for activism that have been working behind the scenes with me to fine-tune these advocacy solutions and what we want to do. They are actually, as of this week, emails. Anybody who answered our Walkaway Value Survey, or anybody that signed the volunteer or support form on our website, will be getting reached out to this week by those regional coaches, because they're going to introduce themselves, and then they're going to organize a meet and greet online initially. And then they're going to have state leaders in every state. And then we're going to divide every state up by district. Now, that might be by their state legislative district. It could be geographical. It could be municipal. That's down to the state leader. I'm not getting involved in that. They're going to create district level captains at those districts, and they're going to have a responsibility to hold meet and greets, to hold fundraisers, to door knock, to plan a state rally. I want one state rally every single year, at least one state fundraiser every single year. And they're going to go out and they're going to do that. And we're going to create the biggest grassroots movement, so that in 2022, we have the presence on the ground to kind of undermine this noise. Because I get all the talk, especially with the audit that came out in Arizona. I understand all the talk about fraud, but there are other factors that we can't take our eye off the ball. The Democrats have created this powerhouse and the Republican Party has been falling asleep the whole time.
Oh God! Don't even get me started. Don't get me started. We'll be here all day.
we'll be here. They basically they've always controlled the mainstream media, right? And we've had the Rush Limbaughs of this world, God rest his soul, and Fox News that have tried to do things, and now we have RSBN, and we have OAN, and we have Newsmax. We have these, but these are just echo chambers. These are just echo chambers. Nobody else is coming to these things at all. So that's not solving the problem. Like, we can create all these new social media platforms in terms of Getter, Parler, whatever. They're echo chambers. They're not going to solve the problem. What is going to solve the problem? How do we get past that? Is we get underneath it all. And that's how we have to do it. Because what ultimately happened in states like Arizona, where they mass mailed out vote by mail ballots, which doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. I mean, I voted in UK elections, never seen any of the processes like this in my life. They mass mailed these ballots out, and they flooded the mainstream media and the social media with all of this misinformation about Trump, about his supporters, about his policies. Then when an article came which could have scuppered Joe Biden and his chances of the presidency in a very narrow election, they suppressed that article, and no one else heard anything about it. And that is what they did. There is nothing more dangerous than a misinformed voter. And we had millions of misinformed voters who, if you're too lazy to get off your ass and register to vote, you shouldn't be voting. And
I think that for me, one of the most terrifying parts of all of this is that the media has learned how to rig an election. The media learned how to, that's what happened in 2020.
100%.
The media learned how to rig an election. And they're not only, and if people think that this is the only time they're going to do it, they're absolutely insane. They're going to do it in every single election from now. Now, that doesn't mean that you sit at home and you say, well, then my vote doesn't matter anyway, and you whine and complain and just let it all go to hell. No, we need to be out there voting and doing those things. But I think what you're describing to me is that Walkaway's goal is to create a way to usurp the power of the media. And I think you guys are thinking about it in a way that I haven't heard any other organization thinking about. Not to, okay, I'm going to name names. I haven't heard Turning Point thinking about it like this. I haven't heard Blexit thinking about it like this. I haven't heard any other like conservative organization thinking about it in the way that you guys are and implementing in the way that you guys are. So I want to be clear about what we're talking about, because Sanja in the chat says, I still don't understand what social media platform am I supposed to find this pack on. Damien, can we just go like really bare
Let's
bones,
rewind
just,
a
like,
little bit.
walk people through the different platforms and the different things. It's a little confusing.
So let's rewind a bit.
It's not up right now. Yeah.
So the social media platform is our standalone platform that is being built on the side for people to come to. It is not ready yet. It is about to be means tested. I think we're pretty close to, kind of like myself, Brandon, Libby, and our moderators going in and playing with it and finding out what needs to be fixed. We're going to means test this very hard in terms of flooding it with data, so we know that it's not going to crash when we launch it and everyone starts flooding to it, which has happened to a few platforms that have tried this. And then it should be ready for our official relaunch. We're planning an official Walkaway relaunch event in January. We wanted it sooner. But we hadn't had the social media platform done, and Brandon's case has dragged out, a lot longer than we really hoped it would. So it's not ready yet. So that social media platform itself is in the process. It will be a standalone platform. We actually have it owned separately as well. Like the PAC doesn't own the social media platform, neither does the foundation. That is owned by a middleman LLC that is for a compliance standpoint, because we can't conflate the two because of the IRS and the FEC. To keep it completely separate. So that's what the social media platform is. The PAC itself has a website, www.walkawaypac.org. And ultimately on this website is where you'll see the Walkaway Value Survey, which is still there right now. We have finished taking, the feedback. However, that will then eventually in the next, hopefully week, I'm hoping, be replaced by our values. So we'll have a page on that. You'll see the volunteer and support form along the top tabs. You'll also see the donate button where you can donate to the PAC if you wish to donate to that specifically. And then this is also, because we haven't even got into the nitty gritty of the other advocacy stuff that we're doing, you'll also see the Advocacy Center. So we have a lot of people that come to us, and I've talked about grassroots, right? Boots on the ground, grassroots, rallies, fundraisers, meet and greets. There are a lot of people that don't have the bandwidth to do it. They don't have the ability to do it, the time. They don't necessarily, when we hold a big rally like our Unsilent March in DC, they don't have the ability to travel across the country to get to that rally. It could be because they're a little bit older, they're financially challenged. All these things I'm talking about restoring the people's voice isn't just about you getting, off your chair. We want to give people the ability to do this from their living room, from their desk. So in the Advocacy Center, you'll see a few things that are online right now, and that is find your legislator. Not enough people know who their legislators are, not just on the federal level, but on the state level. So you will go in there and there's a government website where you can do it, but now you're going to be able to do it from our website too. So you'll punch in your details, you'll find your legislator, and you can actually then go and select. You can go down and click next to their name. There'll be a little option to tick. You can select which of those you want to talk to, and then hit compose a message. You'll be able to then compose an email from our website. So if you have something you really need to say, instead of trying to find their website, find the best place to reach them, email them directly from our website. You can find them and do that right there. What else is also is a bill tracking page. So right now, there's just a couple of example bills up there of bills that we would obviously, if we were active, be advocating against. Not enough people read the bills. I talked about this week. Some of the bills are a little bit intensive. For the People Act, which I read every page, 700 pages. I've been doing a lot of practicing of bill reading so that as a PAC, we can take legitimate stances and not just these hyperbole clickbait stances on bills. We want to understand it fully. And we want you guys to read them too. So again, you can find that in the same place. But if you can't read a 700-page bill, I understand that. That's a lot. We'll be summarizing the bill on our website too, in that same place for you to have kind of a true breakdown. And rest assured, you'll know that we did read the bill. We didn't just go and do what Delta Airlines CEO decided to do down in Georgia and say it's a voter suppression bill, when actually it's one of the most progressive voting bills I've ever read in my life. So being from the UK and how we run,
happens when you actually read the bill.
I mean, how we run elections in the UK, I mean, people would have a heart attack, the progressives in this country. I mean, we don't even have early voting days. You vote on the day, you vote by mail, and it's a heavily regulated vote by mail system, or you're screwed. So that's, so that you'll have that. So you'll be able to at least read and trust that we read the bill. You can submit your issue. If you have an issue, we can't unfortunately take up every issue. But on the state level, this is why we're building out these chapters at the state level. It might be something that you guys can do on a state level within your own activism groups. Like, you guys know what's going on at your local level. I have no idea unless it's in Massachusetts. So, you guys can submit your issues. We'll pass those issues. If it's a federal issue, I'll look at it with Brandon and Libby. If it's a state level issue, I'll pass it down to the regionals and the state leads and say, this is an issue someone really cares about. Here's the bill. What can we do? And what can you do? Because I don't necessarily need to do anything about it. You guys have the power. You've got that core chapter there that can actually do something. Go hold a rally. Do what, and go hold a rally and raise some money over it and advocate against it. So you'll be able to do that. Most importantly, the final thing. Oh, sorry, Colin. I'll let you.
No. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, so one of the more, one of the biggest things that we're going to be able to do, and we obviously haven't done it yet because we're not taking an issue until Brandon's case is resolved, is we'll be able to get you to advocate directly to your state legislators or your federal politicians. So, for instance, let's just take DC statehood, right? If you, like me, believe this is just some ridiculous power grab by the federal government, and that we should just, if they don't want the land, we should retrocede it back to who owned it before, and you want to take that stance, which is a perfectly good stance, we will set up a form on our website. Again, all you have to do is punch in your name and your address. The system will identify who it is. Now, this has already passed the House, so we will be addressing it with your senators. So it's already gone through that. So it would automatically identify that. I can even toggle in the back end of that system. If I want it to go to your local newspapers, it will go. It can actually go to the letters to the editor of all the local newspapers within your region. So you can even, I can toggle that, and it will do it automatically. It autofills. We will, on the back end of the system, put down what the walkaway stance on this issue is, what our messaging should be on this topic. And once you've punched in your name and address, all you have to do is click send, and you can either email, tweet, or both your state senators, your actual senators, your federal senators on this issue, and they will get absolutely bombarded with this same message. We oppose DC statehood. This is why. So we want people to come on when we start advocating against legislation or for legislation, something we particularly like, then we want thousands of people to come to our website, and just all you have to do is put in your information, and we keep that information completely safe. That doesn't go to anybody else, and your senators are going to get bombarded with this same subject heading. Now, imagine if you got 10,000 emails saying I oppose DC statehood, as my senator, say Markey or Warren, right? Imagine if they get that. They're going to pay attention. Now, they're not going to listen, obviously, because we know where their stance lies. But on a very contentious issue that could swing, that's one senator away, like an issue with Joe Manchin, like maybe seeing those 10,000 emails come in saying, I oppose this, I want you to stand against this, will make him realize in a Trump plus 30 district, he's probably not wise to vote for this bill. Those are the kind of things we want you to do. That, just as much as you getting out on your feet, is going to restore your voice. And our voices are more powerful. And that is ultimately what the Constitution is all about, your voice. Our voices are more powerful than anything the Democrats are doing on the mainstream or social media level.
Yeah, and I think I just want to reinforce this point, because when I was working on 544 in New Hampshire, which was the anti-CRT bill in New Hampshire, the state reps would actually tell me that they would count the number of emails they were getting and who was for and who was against, and that heavily influenced it. And they told me that from you guys, from people who watch the channel or my other social media platforms that emailed them, they got over 2,000 emails in support of that bill, like over the course of a couple days. So one guy told me they were literally getting a new email every single second. They pay attention to this stuff. And that's why I was so happy to see that one of the things that Walkaway built out was just an easy way for people to go in and email their elected representatives all with the same messaging, so they know exactly what to say. They don't have to worry about writing it out. They know exactly what the talking points were, because this is something that even if you're able to organize on like a local level, it's something that could be really, really powerful in terms of giving your voices much more weight, because you're going right into their inbox with all of your friends at the same time. It really does make a difference. And this is something Sanja said in the super chat. I'm in Portland. Our legislators don't care about our city. Well, maybe if you're organizing with people and you guys start getting active and you start, emailing your legislators or emailing the state. I mean, is it going to change overnight? No, but can it make a difference? Maybe. At least you're doing something, right?
100%. And, people actually, someone said this to me, about California, and even actually we're going to be putting together an event up here in Massachusetts in November, and people are kind of like, well, what, why people saying, well, it's, California is a lost cause. Someone said to me, and so, well, it's not a lost cause, not yet.
It kind of is a lost cause.
It feels like it, but it definitely feels like it. But I hate hearing the Ben Shapiro's of this world sit there and say, well, do what I did and leave. Ben Shapiro's a millionaire. Ben Shapiro has a business that he can basically run from anywhere. It's an internet platform. It's he has the ability to do whatever the hell he wants. People can't up and leave. Some people grew up there. Some people don't want to leave. It's a culture shock just to leave a state in the USA. Let alone, I mean, I moved country. I don't know, and that's bad enough. But I it's the same when you're moving West Coast to East Coast. It is a culture shock, and people don't want to leave. And right now, does it feel like a lost cause? Absolutely. I mean, I cannot imagine how people voted to keep Gavin Newsom. It doesn't. There's just no way. They're just gluttons for punishment. However, we can't abandon these places, and the people keep saying, well, you're going to give California the internet. Of course we are. Because we're not leaving you guys behind. And we understand that you guys can't just uproot and move to Florida or move to
Brandon
Texas.
spent a month in California, for crying out loud.
He spent a whole month fundraising in California and talking on California political events. And I was just there with him a couple of months ago for an event myself. Libby was just in Washington State doing an event as a keynote speaker there for a Constitution Day dinner. We're not leaving these areas behind. We're not going to let you guys be abandoned. And you can't give up. Do these people in power care about you right now? Well, maybe if we can create a big enough ground movement within Portland, then that isn't just one good thing about Walkaway is we're not just trying to take on Republican talking points here. We're an open-ended journey. You don't have to become a Republican to join Walkaway. That's the key thing. Carlin's a libertarian. I identify as a Republican. Everyone's different, and that's just me. Although that might surprise Carlin. I don't know if I ever told her.
That's fine. It's fine. And this actually goes into Josh. Oh my gosh, had this question: does the Walkaway campaign identify as somewhat of a classic libertarian type of organization? I mean, the line I've always heard from Brandon is Walkaway is a journey. It's not a destination. And
it's not a destination.
And I'll tell you, even as I was trying to figure out what my political, one of the things I loved about Walkaway, and one of the things that I think is just so missing right now is there's nowhere for the politically homeless to go. No. So all throughout 2020, I was in the land of the politically homeless. And then I briefly joined the Republican Party because I was kind of okay, it's the option that I have, and they suck, but they suck less than the Democrats. And then, my journey took me out of the Republican Party and into the Mises Caucus and the Libertarian Party, because I didn't even know about the Mises Caucus when I joined the Republican Party. It was just a lack of awareness, but that's totally fine. That was where that was my destination. That doesn't mean it's your destinations, right?
And that doesn't mean I'm going to stay here. I mean, I actually don't even get a vote yet. I'm not a citizen yet. I get to apply for my citizenship this time next year. Actually, is when I.
You and Victor can study together, because Victor needs to apply for his citizenship.
Same time. There you go. So we can do it. So this time next year, I can submit my citizenship request. And I've got. Sorry, guys, I keep having to do this. I need to figure out these AirPods. I got new AirPods, and they're not sitting in my ears very well. But to answer the question. Yeah, it is. You're right. The way Brandon puts it, it is not a destination; it's a journey. And one of the key things about our vision is uniting people behind those values, but also welcoming diversity of thought. right? I always talk, and Brandon hates it when I bring up the abortion issue, but I'm going to bring up the abortion issue again.
Do it.
I'm going to bring up the abortion issue again, right? I identify as a Republican. I like most Republicans, because you actually go and poll most Republicans, do not have an appetite to outright ban abortion, but we'd like to see some caps in place.
Common sense
limits, which, you know, I've said on 12 weeks. So let's take that as an example. Yeah. When I was a liberal and I started to say that, I was jumped on and vilified for my opinion, called all kinds of things. And that was, you know, part of the walkaway journey. I was like, because then when I actually turned around and said to some Republicans, well, actually, I get what you're saying. I think we could maybe restrict this a little bit. The culture of abortion's bad. I don't agree. I don't like it, but here are the reasons why. And they were more welcoming of that opinion. So the key thing for us is to unite the classic liberals, the libertarians, the fiscal conservatives, and even the evangelical conservatives and hardcore Republicans, to understand that we're not always going to agree on one piece of legislation. Like it is never as easy as left or right, or Republican or Republican or Democrat. There is always people that are thinking along different lines, and we want to unite those people, because if we can understand that, groupthink is the biggest the biggest thing on the left that we stand against. One of the biggest things we stand against is groupthink. We don't want to see that groupthink on our own side either.
No.
So we want to say to you, it doesn't matter whether you're a liberal or a libertarian or a Republican or just a fiscal conservative with some socially liberal views, you're welcome here. Let's unite ourselves behind the founding principles and the core foundations of the Constitution of this republic, because let's remember, we are a republic. We are not a democracy. Only at the state level are we a democracy. So we have to save this republic, because right now everything going on is undermining the foundations of that republic. And then we can argue about policy, and we can argue in a friendly manner, where we can shake hands at the end and say the best person won, the one with the more votes won, whatever. Yeah, and leave it at that and respect one another, because we know we at least respected the core foundations of this country.
So let's see. So we've covered the PAC. We've covered, you guys are launching your own social media platform that's not going to be completely uncancelable. You guys built up a new payment processor from the ground. You guys are launching this advocacy tool that people are going to be able to create groups and go in and advocate for their issues. You're building out a grassroots team where you have regional directors and then state captains and then more people under those captains. So you guys are going to have a whole giant network of people.
Whole web, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Damien, this all sounds like, to be honest, like pretty awesome and a lot of work.
And that's what we've been doing. I mean, it's been 8 months. It really has. It was actually not long before Brandon's arrest. Brandon brought me into a meeting and said, you know, Damien, we'd like you to have a bit more of a role with Walkway. We didn't know what that role looked like at the time. Then literally, I think it was a week later, Brandon got arrested, and it felt like the whole thing was crumbling down.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, it was a disaster, and we regrouped. We completely regrouped, and we, instead of sitting there crying about the situation, we sucked it up and we got on with it. Now, to some people, we hear a lot of people. Unfortunately, we've had some people, like say, that have not stood behind Brandon. We've had some people that have thought we've just disappeared and are doing nothing. We absolutely aren't. Everybody that even takes a dime out of Walkway as a salary is earning that salary every minute of every day. They have to. We. And we're very thankful to our donors that are still donating. We're bringing in money on both the foundation and the PAC level. So we truly are grateful to everybody, because, it is difficult to donate money to something when you don't see a lot like coming out of it at the moment, which you're not. And there were people at times will comment on Brandon's live streams when we were doing them and say, Brandon's abandoned Walkaway. It's like, he hasn't abandoned Walkaway. He's been working as hard as anybody. This has been as painful. Obviously, it's been more painful for him than it has for any of us, because I'm able to come out and say a little bit of my mind, right? I can say something. I am gagged a little bit, but I'm not, but I get to come out and talk about this stuff. Brandon can't be sitting here in my place talking about this right now publicly, or having opinions on some of these things that are going on around January 6th and around, he can't be doing that. So
I cannot imagine, honestly, like, as someone that traveled the country with Brandon for like 6 months, I cannot imagine how he has not been able to open his mouth for months, because Brandon, if anyone knows anything about Brandon, he has an opinion. He definitely has an opinion, and it's been, I mean, I think that I'm just so excited to see you guys come back, I guess is what I want to say, because I'm so excited for Brandon to be able to be public once this is all done again. I think that, the hole that was left when Brandon wasn't able to speak out and to connect with people. For me, at least, it's been extremely stark. And I know that, you and Libby, I think, have done a great job. If you guys aren't following along with Walkaway, Damien and Libby, Walkaway's executive director, have been doing live streams. So make sure you're following Brandon's Facebook page and things like that, because you guys, what platforms are you live streaming on when you do your live streams?
So we just do it through Brandon's Facebook page, which again somehow miraculously is still up after they took away everything. It's kind of crazy. There's no logic to it. They just make the rules up as they go along.
But you guys have been doing a great job, and I know it's not necessarily like the easiest thing to step into. So, I know that Brandon has asked this on a live stream that he did. I want to reiterate it. Guys, be nice to Damien and Libby because they're working so hard. Again, I've seen some of the stuff that Damien's talked about. I've been incredibly impressed by it. Be nice to them. They're doing their best. Brandon is doing his best. I think he's going to come out like a fucking ball of fire when he's ready to go. I think it's going to be actually really entertaining. But you guys are coming back soon. You're planning a relaunch event for January. Can you tell us any more about that?
I think it's pretty much, I mean, I don't know if it's 100% settled, but we were kind of thinking somewhere like Florida, somewhere that's gonna be nice and warm that time, somewhere warmer that time of year. We're not going to be hosting it
thank you
hellhole up here in the Northeast, that's for sure. So somewhere warm, but yeah, and it's going to, we are going to be bringing our influencers. We're going to be bringing our spokespeople. We're going to be bringing hopefully some politicians, some other high profile names in to help us with our relaunch, where we'll run you through all this live. It'll be a live event, so we're hosting that in January, hopefully in Florida. Like I say, it hasn't been 100% decided, but that's where we're hoping to have it.
I would like to advocate for the Trump Hotel in Florida.
We talked about that. We talked about Trump Doral. We talked about a few things. And so I'm not sure where we stand on the actual venue yet. But Brandon had a great idea that he wanted to do kind of like a theater style relaunch, and I love the idea. Like the concept is awesome, and if we can actually get that vision that Brandon has put together and get it in and realize it, it will be an awesome relaunch. And I'd like to say, even once things come out in the next few weeks, that Brandon might be able to be a bit more vocal. I really don't think he's going to be able to. It sucks. Like, he would want to be. But, we've just got to get to the end, past everything until the final chapter is closed on his legal case. Just respect the fact that, the judicial process has to play out. We don't want to hurt any chance of a favorable outcome. And then after that, I mean, trust me, we will not be staying silent after that. I mean, we're going to be talking every day, all day. You're not going to be able to get rid of us once Brandon's allowed to. So
I cannot wait. Josh, oh my gosh, says, Carlin, I recently joined the Mises Caucus in California. Good stuff is being planned. It sucks here, but we aren't giving up. Yeah, definitely. I think the Mises Caucus, I'm just going to say it for myself. Walkaway is a journey, not a destination, but I think a lot of walkaways have a lot more in common with the Mises Caucus than they think. And if only Dave Smith would come on my channel, we could talk about that. But we're not going to talk about that with Damien, because Damien is not going to take a position on where you should go, because, he's not going to tell you that.
No, and that's the key thing, is we never want to tell anyone what to do. That's what I experienced on the left. I was told how I had to think. That is what, and obviously the big thing about us is we're all about minority and LGBT outreach. And the key thing for us is, the Democrats are telling them what to think. They're telling them how they should be behaving, how they should be thinking, who they should vote for, why they should vote for them. We're not trying to tell you that. We're just trying to say, think for yourselves. Like, look at the facts and think for yourselves. Make a decision. You still want to vote that way. I'm not going to criticize you for that. I'm going to be a bit confused, but I'm not going to criticize you for that. That is your freedom to choose. So you're never going to hear from me or Brandon or Libby or anybody what you should or shouldn't do. Some people have said, well, we need to give people a push in the direction of the Republican Party. Someone said to me once. I was like, no, that's not what we need to do, because some people don't want to become Republicans, and that's absolutely fine. I have gone in that direction. When I get to register, I mean, if I were to be able to register right this second, I would tick that box. That's me. That might change in a year. Once we've got, it could do a complete 180, and in 20 years time, and it could be the other side destroying America. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm just saying, theoretically speaking, so there's no end destination here. We are just fighting for our values and for the principles. And as a European, I see it more. I mean, guys, what we've seen in Europe and Australia and Canada right now with these restrictions, these are countries that have these are people that have willingly given up power to their governments over time, over decades. This is something I thought as a British citizen that was normal. Then I came to America and I realized I actually have more. I actually have this freedom. I can actually, freedom of speech is freedom from consequence. I can own a gun. I couldn't own that gun in the UK. I can do this. I can travel freely within states. And that state, gets to decide its own rules, because you're not going to rule Alaska the same way you're going to rule Massachusetts, because you just can't. Those are things that fascinated me when I came to this country, that pushed me in this direction. And, I actually just had it out for a European today on a friend's Facebook page, because he said, because he was from Germany. And he said, I did like my free healthcare, my free education. And I said, you can always go back. I mean, you're a German citizen. Go back. Because I don't want you to change it into Germany, because Germany's a shithole. So is the UK. The open border policies of Europe destroyed that continent. We're seeing the Democrats try and do the same thing here. And all I say to people, especially liberals, I'm like, you want to make us more like Europe? Well, I live there. You don't want to be like Europe, because trust me, you're seeing the results of that. You're seeing the results of what happened when there is no First Amendment protections under the Constitution. There are no guns to prevent government from becoming tyrannical. Which is what we're actually seeing in Australia. That's not an understatement. It is tyranny, what you are seeing in that country. And it is only the fact that I have 3 guns sitting in that adjacent room in my gun safe that stops the government from doing it to us. And I just keep sitting there. And I say to any European that doesn't think the way I think, go back home, because we don't want you. It's that simple.
Yeah. Matthew says, keep up the good work, Damien. Sure, that's appreciated. No, I mean, I want to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the world real quick, because I think it's kind of like all of our greatest fears have been manifested in the course of the last year and a half of what would happen and I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly. And I think, one of the things that I really kind of never understood until I started red pilling, and the walkaway movement was one of the things that helped me understand this, was, I've always been a First Amendment absolutist. That's always been my jam. I never really understood the Second Amendment. I wouldn't say really understood. I didn't really care about it. I grew up in a house that had guns. They didn't seem all that weird to me, because a lot of people have guns in Vermont. But I never understood that the Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. It's to make sure the people can protect themselves from a tyrannical government. And I think that one of the things that I think was a huge misstep for the Republicans, I mean, talk about why walkaway might not want to be a direct funnel to the Republican Party. One of the things that I think was a huge misstep for the Republicans was during 2020, when they when all of a sudden all these Democrats were buying guns, and no one took advantage of the opportunity to talk about why our right to buy guns is important. That was a huge missed opportunity for me.
Well, their messaging has always sucked. I mean, their messaging has always sucked. They've always missed opportunities and really kind of why walkaway is doing what it's doing, because they've missed opportunities to really reach out to those moderates sometimes, because they go and take hardline stances on certain things that it doesn't make much sense to take those hardline stances on guys. There's no appetite for certain things, and they keep trying to push them. And it's we talked about this Texas abortion law. Someone made a very, very good point. We literally took the news cycle back. It was all anti-Biden. It was all the Afghanistan stuff was going on, and then everyone forgot about it because of a bill. Which, look, I've said 12 weeks, and yes, all right. Even if Texas had done 12 weeks, it would have hit the news cycle in a similar sense. But that was even a bill that I couldn't really get behind, because it wasn't even allowing someone that got raped to have that freedom to choose to abort that baby, at an early stage. Now, I still think there should be a limit on that decision. But I'm not forcing a woman that gets raped to have a child. I'm sorry, that goes completely against my morals. Now, I understand morals in politics should never be injected, because everyone's morals are different. But that's not something that I'm going to do. And I was like, guys, could we just hold back off this for a little bit longer? Can we keep Biden in the cycle? Because right now they're screwing up. All we have to do is not screw up.
Just sit back. Just let them talk. Let them do their thing.
Keep letting them talk, and keep letting Biden talk as much as possible, because he trips up every single time. And let's not score any own goals right now. Let's not do anything. Again, we can hash out these policy decisions because let's not forget the Supreme Court didn't even rule on the constitutionality of that law, and even Ben Shapiro,
It was
completely a procedural decision. Had nothing to do with a lot of the right-wing media talking heads were like, oh, well, they ruled it was constant. No, they didn't. They Ben Shapiro himself, who is very pro-life and very staunchly, it doesn't want any abortion, even admitted that himself. It probably won't hold up if it actually goes through and gets challenged by something once there is actually a case to push through the courts. So that even he said that himself. And if anybody doesn't believe me, they can go back and listen to him talking about it. That was his analysis. So there are these things that I'm just like, well, why are we doing this? Because like you said, it's happening thick and fast. The Democrats are panicking. They lose 4 votes, they have nothing. Nothing. They lose 4 votes in the House. They have nothing. They lose 1 vote in the Senate. They have nothing. And they know that. They're panicking. They're trying to ram this through. The progressives are panicking because they know they don't have a mandate. And
then the Republicans come around and shoot themselves in the foot.
And the Republicans do it all the time. Or they don't, like you say, they don't seize an opportunity to really explain, all right, all these, like you say, these Democrats are buying guns like their lives depend on it. And the Republicans are just like, they don't even talk about it.
Right.
They really don't even talk about it. This is kind of the weird thing. I saw Democrats prior to the election making a lot of decisions that were obviously in line with decisions we would make for whatever reason. And then they went and voted for Joe Biden. And I'm like, in my town, sorry, Karen.
No. Go ahead. Tell your story, then we can talk.
So in my town, we have because our town is getting grossly overdeveloped, and the mayor in our town is trying to undermine single family zoning. She believes single family zoning is racist. Apparently, like everything in this world seems to be racist. She is trying to undermine. I own a single family. There are a lot of minorities in my street that own single families, so I don't understand where she gets that from. However, I would see people with these. There's an organization within our town that has been protesting what they're doing at this level with overdevelopment and the single family zoning and all of this. And then you would see a sign against that, and then you'd see a Biden-Harris sign sitting right next to it. And you'd be like, you realize Biden, they're exactly aligned with our mayor on this topic. Like, where is the people educating these people? I just wanted to knock on their door and say, you realize that's an oxymoron in itself sitting right there, that, this is completely hypocritical. You can't have both those signs in your yard. You're either a Biden-Harris supporter or you support that, because right now they're going to make national not just local. They're going to put in federal legislation that does the very thing you're trying to stop on the local level.
And this is the thing that I think is so important, because I think that one of the key components of us actually being able to win the culture war ultimately is we have got to wake more people on the left up. Like, that has got to be in my head, like priority number 1, because what we've seen, and we saw this all throughout 2020, is people on the political right, like, we might agree with them more on their stances, but they don't fight back. They don't get up. They don't go to rallies as much. They go to Trump rallies, but they don't go to rallies that aren't Trump rallies. Like, they just aren't doing the things that are required that I think would ultimately end up winning us the culture war. But the left knows how to fight. If you look at the people who are fighting most ardently back against all of the crazy stuff that's going on in the world, most of them came from the left. And at some point they woke up. And there is no organization out there right now that is actually actively working on helping people to wake up, because it is a process, right? Like, what was your journey like when you woke up? It didn't just happen overnight, right?
It was a 3-year process. I came out in 2017. Yes, in 2018, the Kavanaugh incident really shook me as a guy whose brother was falsely accused of rape and actually dragged through the courts in that process. That was something that, through my own personal experience, made me sick to my stomach. But at the time, I said I wasn't on the Trump train. I definitely wasn't on Trump's bandwagon. I still would sit there and be like, this moron, and say all these things and against him, and I wasn't on his. So it was still, and I still wouldn't have called myself a Republican at that point. It was probably, like, say, really after coronavirus hit. That was the walkaway was the vessel that kind of got me the rest of the way to where I needed to go. Like, say, it's the journey, right? I joined Walkaway in 2020. So I've been here basically a year. It's actually kind of crazy that I've only been on Walkaway for a year. There are plenty of people who've been here from the beginning, and all the way since Brandon first came out with this in 2017, was 2018. We're going back like 3 or 4 years for Brandon. it took me that long to really kind of come full circle, and in 2020 say, no, I'm definitely, I had to educate myself a little bit more on what Trump was doing, why he was doing it, listen to people. And that's what I got to say to some Republicans. Listen, I'm a sales manager in my full-time career. I have to sit down, shut up, and listen to my customers' problems. And then I have to find them solutions. That is what you need to do on the political level. Shut up, let people speak, counter that with the truth, and kind of inform them. Yeah. And then give them a guiding hand and give them solutions, and say, and never tell them what's best for them. That's how we got to do it. We got to shut up and listen and not adhere to any of this groupthink. And the same process. So I treat my, full-time, because that's what a lot of people even don't realize as well. I still have a full-time job. I do this. I 5 o'clock before we started this show, I literally was finishing answering emails for my full-time job. Who people have tried to get me fired from. They've tried and failed. So thankfully, I've had, people, when I became a little bit more out there, people were calling up my employer, unfortunately. But thankfully, they're good. Yeah, exactly. But that's exactly what I walked away from. They just embolden. Every time they do stuff like that, it just reminds me of exactly why I made the right decision. So I'm just urging people to kind of, to try and get with that messaging. And look, I understand 100%, like not everybody is going to be able to door knock. Not everybody's going to be able to get out there and do what is being done. But look at the tools and what we're doing and use them well. And be welcoming to the people that are coming across, because they don't know where they're going to end up. They may well be in completely aligned with you by the end of their journey. They might not be, and that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this too. And so the walkaway group that used to exist on Facebook was really instrumental in me red pilling, because it was like a safe haven that I could go and I could look at other stories and I could see that I wasn't crazy. There were other people that were seeing the same thing I was. It was the only place that I had in my life where I wasn't crazy.
It gives you the courage. It really just seeing that everyone together gives you the courage. I lost a lot of friends. I always say this. I lost a lot of friends when I went out on Facebook. Bear in mind, a lot of my friends are still in the UK and they get the same misinformation that I initially had received. So they were even more brainwashed a few years down the line of Trump, because obviously they don't comprehend America first. They're more interested in keeping us in the Paris Climate Accord, or the Iran nuclear deal, which was not good for America. Right. They're more interested in those things. So when they see us pulling out of them and saying, go screw yourselves, they don't like it. They're brainwashed. So when I posted that up and I finally said, I'm on the Trump train, I'm all for Trump, let's get him reelected, I lost a lot of friends, but I gained out of this experience 10 times better friends. I've had people unfriend me, call me all kinds of names, people that I really respected, and it initially does hit home. You're like, wow, that person really, but the truth is they were never that great a friend in the first place, if that's what they did. And I made a ton of better friends out of it on this side of the spectrum. So
no, it's totally true. But I really do think that one of the things we need to focus on is waking people up and helping them understand and helping them see. And what I hope people get out of this segment is that it is a process. It is not something that happens overnight. And I want to just beat this dead horse, because one of the things that I've observed about the political right, whether you be like MAGA or conservatives or Republicans, I know that there are a lot of reasons for people on the right to be angry right now. I understand it on several different levels. But one of the things that I've observed since Joe Biden got inaugurated is the political right can be exceptionally mean to people who disagree with them on even the most minor of issues. And I think it's a lot of pent up anger and frustration at what's going on in the world, and compared with how they thought it was going to turn out. And again, I completely understand it. But when people are waking up and you have someone in your face calling you a libtard, it doesn't help the situation.
No, it doesn't. And that's why I try to emphasize and talk about, look, I think we got screwed. I do. I think we got screwed out of this election by both misinformed voters and fake narratives. And obviously we're seeing stuff come out that are raising eyebrows, and is definitely evidence of at least incompetence, if not deliberate wrongdoing, in Arizona. The media are now ignoring. I mean, look at what they did. They got ahead of the narrative. They leaked out those numbers that fit the narrative the day before it, and then
you
the next day
there was something in it because they got ahead of it. I was like,
because they got, the minute that leaked, I was like, there's something here. And then I watched all 3, and I think it was 3 hours 20 minutes of that hearing, Now, there's some stuff in there that, we don't know what it means. And unfortunately, because Maricopa County aren't cooperating, we may never know what it means. But when you look at and I don't know if this is going to get you dinged, so I'm trying
whatever.
But when you look at what, and this is what really astounds me when I talk to my liberal friends who are just obviously adamant, no wrongdoing. I was like, well, let's look at this let me look at it from not my stance, right? Let's look at that. We have 17,000 duplicates. We don't know who those duplicates are for. Some of them could very well be. Half of them could be for Trump. We don't know who they're for. We don't know. They didn't tell us that. We have 17,000 duplicates, of which a number of these signatures were blank, and they stamped them anyway, which makes me question why.
Why even have a signature line?
Why? Yeah.
Why?
And so and why would you do that? It makes does make me query. They're stamped and approved. You got stamps which actually go behind the signature triangles. Like, this is stuff that is serious. And I always say to my friends, at the very minimum, let's pretend that there was no deliberate wrongdoing here. It at least shows a severe amount of incompetence. And that incompetence undermines trust in our elections. Now, let's go back to 2016. In 2016, give me a second, Mike. When I said serious, Siri decided to start on my MacBook. Give me 1 second. I'm going to just do this because
I hear you. It happens to me all the time. Don't worry about it.
So now I'm not even going to say it anymore because everybody knows what I'm talking about. When you say anything beginning with S that sounds anything like a certain name,
it's your accent.
MacBook or your iPhone,
your
it 100% it is. And it's a morph between, like, everyone thinks I'm Australian now. It's like a morph between British and American now. But if we go back to 2016, there was a YouGov poll, and YouGov are a very reputable firm that polled Democrats that said 66% believed Russia had hacked our voting machines and flipped votes for Donald Trump. We then not only had that, we have the fake Russia collusion narrative, which was deliberately planted by the Clinton campaign. We've seen one indictment. I'm sure we're going to see more when the Durham report continues to do its work, providing Merrick Garland doesn't interfere and does his job as he should, and be
as we hope he will.
As we hope he will. Now, we'll see if he's worth his weight in gold at all as this Durham report continues. But we had that too. So I always go back to them and say, well, clearly there's a problem here. Nobody trusts the process. In 2018, Stacey Abrams literally cried foul, never conceded the gubernatorial race in Georgia. So we have a continuous problem, and it feels like it's been going on. But you go back to 2005 when they certified the results for the second term of Bush. There was somebody that stood up and objected to the Ohio vote count, citing voter irregularities in Ohio. A Democrat's congressperson said this. This has been going on for years, and it has to end. How do we end it? Let's put in common sense laws. Let's do away with it. I'm all for doing away with early voting. Now, I tell people how we run elections in the UK all the time, and I always say this to my liberal friends: there is no early voting. You can't just show up and a week before the election and vote a week before the election. There is vote by mail. It is very heavily regulated. The voter rolls are purged in the UK. So it is a trusted process that has been going on now for about 20 years. If America was to adopt that kind of vote by mail process, I think it could be trusted. But the problem is it's never going to be trusted with all these other things going on and the politicization of the political process. So we need to, it's very evident neither side trusts the process. So let's fix it. Yeah. And that's but they don't see it.
They didn't want to hear it. I know. I mean, in my state, in New Hampshire, because we were all at the walkaway house in Florida on election night, so I had to vote before I went there, obviously. And how it works here is I had to go to town hall, show my ID, get an absentee ballot, and I could have mailed the absentee ballot back in, but I chose to fill it out right there, and I had to show my ID again when I handed it in, and that was that. And so, I mean, there are ways that we can do this. But I think, the thing that I've always come back to in regards to, why something like January 6th happened, January 6th happened because half of the country did not feel listened to.
No.
That's why it happened. Because you had half of the country that felt like they were completely and utterly dismissed by the other half. Now, you can think that the perspective that someone has is nonsense and still give them the courtesy of listening to them. And one of the reasons I was actually really pissed about what happened on January 6th is, I thought that nothing was going to come of the objections. Nothing was going to come of the objections that
No.
were being made. Nothing was going to happen, except that it would have given a couple hours of debate where a case could have been presented. And then maybe if that case had been presented, at least some people would have felt as though they had had an opportunity to be heard. Because up until that point, no one had had an opportunity to be heard or present evidence. The courts dismissed all these cases based on standing, which has nothing to do with how much evidence there actually is. And so, in order to get people to buy into this idea that Joe Biden won this election, you should have listened to people.
There
Give
should have
them
been
a
a
chance to
process.
share their side.
And
And
I
that never
blame,
happened.
you touched on a big thing there, standing. That was a huge thing. And I've said this publicly. I've talked a lot about the Supreme Court's power in this, and also Mike Pence's power to, to send the decision back to the states and to decline electoral votes. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of debate about this. Where I put a lot of blame is the state legislative level, and I do get very frustrated. I get very, very frustrated listening to the Pennsylvania Senate is the worst. They saber rattling like hell right now, and it's like, you guys gave up the power. You guys let this happen. Same with the Arizona Senate. It doesn't matter what the Democrats say with some of these, the For the People Act or the Freedom to Vote Act. They do not have broad power to just control elections. Where their power comes in is to step in if a state decided they don't want black people to vote anymore. That's where the role of federal government comes in, when it is that egregious, not when these apparently voter suppression laws in Georgia are coming in. Like, so the power has always been with the state legislatures, and they've slowly given up that power. They've slowly given it up bit by bit to the governors, to the Secretary of States, the attorney generals, to do certain things that the Constitution really prescribes them the power to do. And that has been the biggest problem. So that when there was a problem, like there was in 2020, like there was down in Maricopa County in Arizona, they couldn't do anything about it because they had given up all that power. They didn't have the power to certify or decertify down in Arizona. It was, as soon as it had the Secretary of State signature on it, it was done. Well, set up a procedure. You guys have the power to set the procedure up however you want. And you don't even have to send the actual, and obviously I would never want this to happen, but the popular vote is just a guidance to the state legislature of how to vote how to vote in the electoral college. It is a guidance. The founding fathers wanted to give people that say. In a true republic, the president isn't appointed by the people. We have a very, that's why they say we are a democratic republic. In that sense, we are 100%. Yes, because we were allowed to vote for. Remember, before the 17th Amendment, we weren't even allowed to vote for our senators at the federal level, and that was the worst amendment, one of the worst amendments we've ever seen, because there was your checks and balance, right? We talk about checks and balances and how the Constitution is designed to do that. The way a true republic is supposed to work is we are a democracy at the state level. You vote for your representatives. Your representatives send out your representative in the Senate. We get equal representation across all 50 states in the Senate. If that senator did a Mitt Romney and decided to vote to impeach President Trump and the state Senate didn't like it, they could pull him back before the 17th Amendment. If the senators ever stepped out of line, they could pull them back. That was the checks and balance. They changed it so that we elected our senators at the federal level with the 17th Amendment. So before 1913, we never had a vote on putting Mitt Romney in place, putting Elizabeth Warren in place, putting these people in place. And now we have 40, 50-year career politicians. And that's what really broke the system, because we don't, I mean, again, and that was a power grab by Republicans too. Bear in mind that was supported by Republican states. So Republican states have shot ourselves in the foot repeatedly over and over again by passing stupid things like the 17th Amendment, because people wanted to consolidate power and consolidate their grip and their careers. That's what it was all about. And nobody stepped in at that point either. And then during this whole election debacle, people were sitting there saying that the vice president had the power to reject electoral votes. I will stand up to anybody and say, if you know what the Constitution is designed to do, and this is a British guy telling you this, if everybody knows exactly how the Constitution is designed to balance power in this country, the president isn't supposed to have as much power as he has today, but he has it. So how on God's earth would the vice president have that power? He doesn't have the power. It's entirely ceremonial. He interpreted it right. And this is what I urge Republicans on my side, as someone who identifies as a Republican. Let's not forget, we want to, I understand it. We think we're right. We are right most of the time, I believe. However, let's not forget about what I'm talking about, those principles we have to unite behind. Let's not undermine the Constitution. I saw a Newsmax presenter once say she had heard, I think it was Emerald Robinson? I think it's Emerald.
Yeah.
And she said something that I really didn't like. And I want all Republicans to listen to me on this as to why I don't like it. And listen. You don't have to agree with me by the end of it. And I'll still love you guys just as much as I do now. We'll just disagree. She said she'd heard a leak. She'd had people saying that people were worried about Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Barrett's ability to make conservative decisions on the Supreme Court. Mike Pence, just the last 2 weeks, said the same thing about making conservative decisions. Well, let me tell you this, the Constitution is not conservative. You can't inject your morals into the Constitution, because that, as Scalia, the great Scalia, said himself, you can't do that. And we have to be very careful about in order to get what we want, playing the same dirty games that the Democrats play in undermining the foundations and weaponizing the Constitution. We cannot do the same thing. We cannot play their tricks. We have to be better than them. It's that simple.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said. And I want to ask you another question off of that in a second, but we have a couple super chats I just want to acknowledge. Driving Miss Charlie, I know it isn't much, but it's 20% all I have. Thank you, Driving Miss Charlie. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. And Matthew Hammond says, abortion is so contentious in the U.S. because it was decided by the Supreme Court instead of legislation. Republicans seem to be okay with abortion until Democrats change from safe, legal, and rare to legal up to birth. Yeah,
and I agree.
I think that this is part of the problem, is like our legislative branch does nothing.
I would throw let me make this clear. I would throw Roe v. Wade out. I don't think there's anything in the Constitution about abortion. I think Roe v. Wade was legislating through the bench at its finest. I am all for states' rights to make the decision. Do I agree with every state that would, if a state chooses to make it entirely illegal, will I agree with that? No, but I will respect and fight for that right for them to do that 100%. That is, we live in a federal republic. Not a constitutional federal republic. They should have the right. And then if you don't like it, you have the power to move state. It's that simple.
Exactly. But I wanted to ask you, because, towards the end of the election cycle last year, there were like in the walkaway team, they were talking a lot about just like walking away from extremism in general. Maybe should be a theme moving forward. Have you guys ever thought about like walk away, not just being walking away from the Democratic Party, but just walking away, like finding like a more sane political landscape?
Well, I think that's why we talk about like the uniting behind the foundation. So there was ever a time the Republican Party ever decided to do something that we felt betrayed those values, we would hold them to the same account the Democrat Party gets held to account to. So that's why we really are like we say that, and we're not a one size fits all organization. I think that's important in this heavily polarized country that we're in. And I've turned around to people before and said, well, this organization isn't for you if you think that. And we're not afraid to say that. That's not a criticism. It's just there are other organizations that are trying to do different things. And if this is what you think, sometimes they're worth your money more, worth your time and your money more than ours. And that isn't, so when, and look, we don't criticize people. That's your opinion. You're entitled to believe it. But that is right. And that's why I always say, like I said about the Constitution, don't do the same thing they do, because if you do, you're going to create a problem. And remember, this elections in the US are won in the middle. They're won by moderates. They're not won by the polarized left or the populist right. They're won by attracting moderates, and we've got to attract moderates. And then like I say, we can argue about intricacies of actual legislation once we've actually save the republic, because right now we are in this country is in danger. I cannot see, even in 50 years, I always used to say 300 years, in 50 years, I don't see America looking as it does if this carries down this path. I just can't see it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think I missed this super chat from Matthew before. Sorry, Matthew. Establishment Republicans don't care about guns and may agree with Democrats on gun bans. Look at Dan Crenshaw types. It is populist versus establishment. I mean, I really think, honestly, like if I had to sum up where I think we are politically, it is populist versus establishment. I think the MAGA movement at its core was not a movement about Republicans or conservatives. It was a populist movement. Trump appealed to a populist voter. And
when have
frankly,
we ever had a president hated by both parties? Like,
oh my God, I know. And I think a lot of people, especially on the left, they don't realize this. Like, the Republican Party hated Trump. Hated Trump.
He was there to tear it all down.
To this day. Yeah.
He was there to tear the whole system down. And that is why what appealed to me as I started to realize what was happening. I was like, well, this guy isn't afraid to call out a Republican for the same thing. And we can't be afraid, and I can't be afraid to say the same thing. The reason, like, you know, I really do feel like the Republican Party of this crazy two-party system we're in, like, you know, it is a little bit confusing to me at times because I came from the UK where I voted Conservative. I voted Labour Party. I did vote Conservative on some local elections because there were moderate Conservatives in the Conservative Party. I voted Liberal Democrat as it became a more centrist party and moved away from, you know, being the further left party. The kind of Labour, kind of ironic, was Labour was the centrist party, the Lib Dems were the far left party, and they just did a complete and utter switch. But you know, so that's kind of like the key thing in this two-party system is we've got to whittle it out on both ends. And I've said this on Brandon's page, we're not just coming after, you know, we're not just coming after the Warrens of this world, the Pelosi's of this world, right? We just had yet another election in this state of Massachusetts where a Kennedy was involved, right? The Kennedys, Jesus Christ, that family.
They will never go away.
They just don't go away. But it's the same with the Cheneys. It's the same with the Bushes. It's the same with
Liz Cheney. Can we just say that? Liz Cheney.
Liz Cheney is a moron, and I can't wait, and I cannot wait. That is one race I'm going to have so much fun being involved in. 100% with the Super PAC. That is one race I'm going to have. Same thing with. Same thing with why is the name escaping me? Jesus Christ! Arizona.
Can we go do an
McCain's?
Can we go do an Liz Cheney rally in Wyoming, please? I've never been to
Wyoming. We can absolutely
yeah.
can. Well, I mean, right now we can't do anything right at this very second, but next year, absolutely. Well, the primary is not till summer next year anyway, so we've got plenty of time. But you know, so she. You know, I was going to be very vocal against Adam Kurtzinger until it looks like they're going to redistrict him out of Illinois anyway. Like, look at that. You lick the boots of the Democrats and then they're going to redistrict you out anyway. So, I mean, you feel like, you know, that guy, you know, I mean, he says he's happy with the decisions he made. I wouldn't be if I was him.
No.
You know, so, you know, when I talk about
on the January, he cried.
I mean, this is
can you imagine?
Yeah. So then the McCains, look at the McCains. They're weaseling their way back in. After Trump, like, I mean, you know, his wife gets a position, like, you know, and then, you know, it just blows my mind that these guys literally were celebrating Trump losing because they thought we're going to get our way back in, but, you know, we're going to get ourselves back in here, and that's all they care about. They don't care about you. They're all looking after each other anyway. They might sit there in public and criticize each other on policy, but they're all trying to do the same thing. That's why I said, even when the 17th Amendment came in, Republican states, you need a 2/3 states majority to pass an amendment on the Constitution. How many Republican state legislatures voted for that?
Right.
How many? It's absolutely a travesty, and that was a power grab. The 17th Amendment was a power grab by senators.
Well, Damien, I think we could go on all day, but I think you know, we've already covered a lot of ground for today. Are there anything other topics you want to touch on before we conclude?
No, I think we touched on some good ones. I think we touched on a lot of the stuff talking about, you know, we could talk about the policy all day for another 3 hours the way it's going, but it's going to be an eventful week. I would just say, let's keep our fingers crossed for Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, because we need them right now. And like I say, don't lose the faith. Like, you're going to start seeing this stuff rolled out. You're going to see our relaunch come in January. You're going to hear some news on Brandon in the next few weeks. And we're going to have a resolution, and we're going to come back bigger and stronger than ever.
And hopefully Brandon's going to come on my channel when he can, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you got to ask him. I don't want to push it forward.
Brandon, you're gonna come on my channel while you can, right?
I mean, I am sure Brandon is like, he has been gagged for so long. He is like crazy looking forward to being out. I mean, he's going to want as many platforms as he can to get his side of the story out, because he hasn't been heard. Let's remember that, guys. Yeah. Regardless of what you see on the complaint, regardless of what you see in the media, Brandon has not had a chance to share his side of the story yet. He has not stood in, so let's give Brandon a chance to hear him out, because there were a lot of people that came and said, well, he said this to a police or about a police.
Like,
no, guys, if anybody who knows Brandon knows what happened. He will have his chance to defend himself in the coming weeks or months. And that's all I say. Please just wait for that opportunity.
And I'm going to say again, for myself, I do not work for Walkaway. I'm only speaking for myself. As soon as I heard that the video of the day that got Brandon in trouble, I knew immediately it wasn't his voice.
And I said that on his live as well.
It wasn't even a question. And it's like, I traveled with the man for 6 months. I could pick out his voice is very distinctive. I could pick it out in a crowd. It was not his voice. No,
and I actually was able to say that. I did say that on his live stream himself. So I've even said that.
I just don't want to get anyone in trouble, so I do like qualifications.
No, and I did say it myself. I can tell you right now, if I believed in it, he had been the person to say that. Walkaway has never ever stood for abusing our police officers. We've always stood behind the police force. We've always backed the blue. This is not something Brandon would do, because it would be suicidal for our organization. And I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here defending him if I felt that was him. I wouldn't even be a part of the organization, because it would go against everything that that I stand for. So so that's why I say, let Brandon get his side out. He will be able to get his side out very, very soon. And that's all I say to people that have any questions. Please be patient. He will be able to speak his mind at some point.
Cool. Well, we have one last super chat I just want to acknowledge again from Matthew Hammond. Thank you for the super chats. The parliamentary system is similar to a two-party system we have in the US, where each party is a coalition of different groups. Well, thank you again, Damien, for coming and joining me on the stream. Where can people find you if they want to connect?
So on Twitter, I'm pretty active on Twitter. I'm not on Getter. I'm not on Parler. I'm not on any of that right now. I'm going to figure that out at some point, what I want to be a part of. But I am on Twitter at WalkawayDamo, spelled DAMO, short for Damien. You can actually find my page on Facebook under the same tag.
Awesome. And I do believe I put links in the description below for you guys, so you can find Damien there. And we'll look forward to future conversations, Damien. Want to come back sometime and talk about some of the bills you're keeping an eye on sometime in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. As we start to push it and roll everything out, we'll happily, we want to be able to come out and talk about what we're doing. And I'll just remind you, if anyone does want to go to the website and check out what we've built on the back end for now, it is www.walkawaypac.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. We'll look forward to Walkaway making its triumphant return. Guys, I will be back tomorrow with a stream at 9:30, the usual Tuesday stream with Joshua. Nothing remotely controversial, my little evening show. So we'll see you guys then. I'll probably have a couple other videos for you in the meantime. But that's all we have for right now. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having me.